Welcome everyone to my first attempt at a virtual bird walk. You'll see that I have this GoPro camera strapped to my head that's hopefully going to get a little bit of what I'm seeing through my eyes. I've also got a recording device strapped to my head, and that is actually hopefully going to catch a little bit of what I'm hearing. It'll also catch any narration that I may have when things get particularly slow. So it's just like a normal bird walk. Let's see, I've also got my camera here and some binoculars. Hopefully the camera can get us a little bit closer to some of the birds that we see. But yeah, it's a beautiful spring morning, sun is shining, birds are singing, and thanks so much for joining me. Let's go out and look for some birds. Okay, so right off the bat you can see this lovely sky up here, and I can hear some tree swallows migrating over. We've also got our local birds coming in to hang out at the bird feeder. Recent additions are these beautiful bright yellow goldfinches here. These goldfinches love the bird feeder, particularly the Niger seed there, and they'll come down and enjoy it. It's quite the movement of tree swallows, 4 or 5 of them. Excellent. All right. You can also hear an eastern towhee singing. There are actually a couple of them singing or vocalizing right now. He's the one that just there went, "Drink your tea." See if he goes again. Oh, okay. Interesting. The tree swallows are coming down right now, and they are checking out our birdhouse, which currently has a pair of bluebirds building a nest in it. This is the first time I've seen tree swallows actually come down and check out any of our nesting boxes, which is pretty interesting. Looks like our pair of bluebirds is not super happy about it, though. We've also got a white-breasted nuthatch here, hanging out on the tree, doing what it does best, smacking at things in tree bark, and hanging upside down while doing it. What a fancy bird. Alright. Let's get into the woods here. So the woods behind my house are dominated by white pine and red oak. This is sort of a typical kind of mature upland forest in here. This habitat in here is perfect for all kinds of things, including eastern towhees, which we've already heard, as well as hermit thrushes, which came back a few weeks ago and started singing. Hopefully we'll see some of them. We also will have things like oven birds and hopefully some other critters that are nesting in here as well. I should say we also have pine warblers, which makes sense. One of the few warbler names that actually makes sense. Pine warblers are very highly associated with Pinus strobus, the white pine. Here's some more eastern towhees just calling. And they call, it's just like the first note of their song, just a chewink, chewink. Oh, excellent. There is a hermit thrush singing. It's a very ethereal song. Right there. Nice. It's considered one of the most beautiful songs of North American songbirds. It's very similar to some of the other thrushes, but hermit thrushes are easy to remember because it often starts out with one whistled note and then sort of flourishes from there. So sort of a boo like that. Down here you can also see some mixed evidence of different behavior. First off, there's of course, a Bud Light can that's been burned and apparently shot and crushed. That's human behavior. But we also have some leaf litter here that's been scratched up recently. You guys see this? And this is actually turkey behavior. We've had one female turkey that's been roaming around the yard, scratching around. We've actually caught her on our game camera. And she's probably a lone female turkey that's got a nest. They can have a whole bunch of eggs in their nest, and they're just lying on the ground. And in the cold, she'll go and sit on them, but during the day, she just wanders around and searches for food in the leaf litter. Pretty soon, she's going to have a whole bunch of little baby turkeys running around, so hoping to see them soon. Can you guys hear that hermit thrush? We'll see if we can get a little closer to the hermit thrush. It's a beautiful song. Got a couple towhees singing in the background. There it goes over on the right. Really pretty. These piney woods, this is kind of the peaceful time of year for bird song. I think once the ovenbirds show up, it's going to be hard to enjoy all the other birds because ovenbirds are so loud. So this is an understory of a lot of black huckleberry, which has these sort of gray twigs. And the green twigs on last year's growth are actually from blueberries. So these are low bush blueberries down here, and you'll see that they're actually starting to leaf out. Their buds have burst, and they hopefully will produce a lot of bird food and people food. At least that's the hope. You can see this here. I was going to point out this low bush blueberry down here, but I'm also going to point out the preponderance of white pine. This is a white pine cone here, and if you disassemble it in a methodical fashion like this, you can get to some of the seeds that are in there underneath the very sizable scales. What kind of animal is that OCD and crazy? A red squirrel. So red squirrels just came out of their winter dormancy recently, and this one is making up for lost time by going nuts on some red pine cones here. Probably got a burrow nearby. You hear more of these towhees. Right now we're approaching a section of the woods that's, I guess, locally called Thatcher's Pond. It's not much of a pond. It looks impressive, but it's probably inches deep when it's full of water. It should be full of water today. It's been raining a lot. But it is a very large open area, and surrounding it is a really interesting sort of wet patch. So we've got sweet pepper bush here, which is a native sort of wetland obligate, as well as a bunch of high bush blueberry and red maples in the swampier areas. But interestingly, this is still sort of part of the coastal plain of Massachusetts, and there are patches of sand. So we have other things like this pitch pine here, which seems very out of place, but there are several of them. So it's not a mistake. These things are actually suited for where they're rooted, but when you get these nice combinations of different habitats, that's when you can see the highest diversity of birds typically. So when you're out birding, you want to find a place that's got a whole bunch of different habitats if you're looking for more species. We're going to do our best to sneak underneath this log gracefully, keeping in mind that I have a large camera stuck to my head. So graceful. This towhee's making a lot of noise. It's great. Sort of an adaptation on the Drink Your Tea song. Let's see if we can sneak a peek of this bird. Excellent. So this bird is actually singing way high up in this tree, which is, if you know anything about towhees, they are not typically ones to hang out at the tops of trees. This is very much spring behavior. This is a male. You can tell that because his hood is black and his back and tail are black as well. He does have those characteristic rufous sides. Many people may have learned this. Bird is the rufous-sided towhee. It has since changed its name to eastern towhee because there are western versions of it called spotted towhee. But a female would have a sort of a chocolatey brown hood and back instead of black. It's a very sharp bird, and usually a bird that nests in low shrubby area like we've got around here. All the area that we just walked through is great habitat for them. I would say this out here is even better habitat because there are more nesting sites in these in these high bush blueberries. So these guys are singing right now, and it might sound like, there he goes, flying. He's hanging out on the ground. Cool. So it might sound like these guys are duetting with each other, but they're really laying down the law, letting everyone know whose territory is whose. And right now is a period of time when some birds are migrating through and some are planning on staying. So it's really important for them all to be singing, so everyone knows what's going on. And indeed, Thatcher's Pond floweth over. Ooh, look, waterfowl. This is the first time I've seen waterfowl on the pond. Perhaps not as glorious as I would have hoped, since they are Canada geese. These geese are probably barely floating. They could probably scrape the bottom of the pond with their toenails. It is not very deep. Very cool. You can see how nervous these birds are. So, as remote as this pond may be, oh, excellent. Oof, all right. We've got ourselves a shorebird species out here. This is a first for me out here. This is a yellow legs. This type of wetland is perfect for them, where there's very shallow water, probably with a lot of invertebrates in it. Really good foraging for them. They use their very long legs to run around in the water, chasing after invertebrates. Yeah, this is great. Okay, I'm going to try to get a little bit closer before we figure out whether this is a greater or a lesser yellow legs. Two species are very similar. Oh, this is great. Look at this bird. Fantastic. Yellow legs are just starting to move through. The lesser and greater yellow legs identification is very similar to that of like downy woodpecker and versus hairy woodpecker. The downy being the smaller one with a proportionally shorter bill. The same holds true for lesser yellow legs. So they're smaller and have a shorter bill. Now, of course, those things are all relative to greater yellow legs. So when you see the two species together, it's a lot easier than when you just see one isolated individual. There he goes. And that's your typical greater yellow legs. Vocalization. Toot, 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 toot. Toot, toot, toot. Very loud, very emphatic. Classic greater yellow legs. Some more tree swallows migrating over. Excellent. It's a beautiful day. On days like today, it's always very good to keep your eyes up to the skies. See all kinds of stuff. There are a couple of blue jays that are flying over right now. But days like this, particularly in the afternoon, on a nice still day like this, or even a windy day, when you're looking up, you can see all kinds of stuff flying over. So I'm 20 miles inland and was looking up the other day. He goes, the red-winged blackbird. And lo and behold, a couple of common loons that were migrating flew right overhead. So always keep your eyes to the sky. And when you've got a nice open area like this, that's pretty awesome. See all kinds of sky. Now, I'll tell you, the last thing I was expecting to see was a shorebird migrant today. I was thinking we'd see some more passerine migrants. Warblers have started to move through. Things like palm warblers, and then some of the earlier neotropical migrant warblers like northern parulas have started moving up as well. So I was kind of hoping we'd encounter some of them today. But greater yellow legs is certainly a treat. Oh, there go our geese. They're kind of done with us. Can't say I blame them. So you can see these blueberries are starting to bud. And red maples, which live in these nice swamps back in here, they're actually blooming. Oftentimes red maples grow along roadsides, and One of the first real signs of spring is sort of this very faint rosy blush that a lot of the trees get. And that's actually blooming red maple. I think we're going to conclude our virtual bird walk with that. Oh, perfect, just for us. This lovely great blue heron flying over the tree line here. Truly a grand bird, and very prehistoric looking. Huge wingspan, crazy long legs trailing out behind it. And right now these guys are moving back and forth from roosting sites where they actually nest communally to feeding grounds. So wonder where this guy's headed. Fantastic. Alright, well, let's conclude our virtual bird walk at that. Thank you everyone for joining me, or for tuning in at some point to watch this. I hope you're all able to get out and socially distance and keep an ear out for whatever's hanging out in your backyard. And if it's safe to do so, I encourage you to check out any of the green spaces that are open near you as well. Obviously stay 6 feet apart and do all those lovely things to keep your own personal safety and the safety for those around you. But fortunately, birds are really good at keeping their distance from people, so you don't have to worry about them too much. And hopefully right now birds can give you a little sense of sanity in the crazy things that are going on all around us. So thank you all very much for joining, and get out there and bird.